So, you're a foreign investor and you're looking at Hungary's booming industrial property market. Well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down the legal and tax essentials you absolutely need to know, the stuff that can really make or break your investment. Let's jump right in. Here's what we've got on the docket. First, we'll look at why Hungary is such a strategic hotspot. Then, we'll get into the legal stuff, the all-important due diligence checklist, the step-by-step process of buying, and, of course, the taxes. We'll wrap up with a really crucial choice you'll have to make, the asset versus share deal. All right, let's kick things off with the big question. Why Hungary? What is it that's pulling so much industrial and logistics investment into this specific part of Central Europe? Well, it really starts with one very powerful number, 9%. That's it. That is Hungary's corporate tax rate, and it happens to be the lowest in the entire European Union. It's more than just a number on a page, it's a huge welcome sign for investors. But of course, it's about way more than just taxes. Hungary's location is frankly perfect. It's right at the crossroads of Europe, giving you direct access to all the major EU transport corridors and markets. And what does that mean for you? It means property and operating costs are way more competitive than what you'd find in Western Europe, especially in those hot-ticket industrial zones around Budapest, Győr, and Debrecen. Okay, so we've covered the why. Now let's get into the how. We're going to start with the legal framework. Think of these as the ground rules you just have to know for a secure, compliant purchase. And the very first rule is fantastic news for any international investor. There are no special roadblocks. It doesn't matter if you're a foreign company or just an individual, you have the exact same rights to buy industrial and commercial property as a Hungarian citizen. The market is completely open to you. Now, here's a rule that is absolutely non-negotiable. You cannot do this by yourself. Hungarian law says it is mandatory to use a licensed local lawyer. They're the ones legally required to draft, countersign, and then submit your final purchase agreement. This isn't optional. It's a must-do for everything to be above board. And all of that lawyer's work leads right to this point. See, just signing a contract doesn't mean you're done. Your ownership only becomes legally official, legally binding, once that transaction is filed and registered with the Land Registry. That's the state's official record, and it's the final word on who owns what. Okay, before a single contract gets signed, we have got to talk about maybe the most important step of all, due diligence. Think of this as a complete health checkup for your investment. It's designed to find any and all hidden risks before they become your problem. The first layer is all about the legal stuff. Does the seller actually have a clean title? Are there any hidden claims or mortgages on the property? And this one's huge. Does the local zoning plan, they call it the HEZ, actually allow for what you want to do? Can you build a factory there, or is it only zoned for a simple warehouse? This step clears the legal path for you. Next up is the technical layer. This is where we look at the physical property itself. Is the building sound? Can the site actually handle your electricity and water needs? And for old industrial sites, this is a biggie. Are there any environmental risks? We're talking soil or groundwater pollution that you could suddenly become responsible for. You have to check. And the final layer is all about the money, financial and tax due diligence. This is absolutely critical, especially if you're thinking about a share deal, where you're buying the company that owns the property. This is the deep dive that protects you from inheriting nasty surprises like unpaid taxes or old lawsuits. So let's say due diligence gives you the all clear. What does the actual purchase process look like? Let's walk through the main steps from making that first offer all the way to getting the keys in your hand. It's a pretty clear 5-step path. It all kicks off with your offer and the negotiation. From there, your lawyer drafts the formal sale and purchase agreement, or SPA. Once that's signed, your lawyer takes it and files it with the Land Registry. After it's all processed, you get the final title deed. And the very last step is the physical handover of the property. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the part everyone wants to understand, the money. What are the main taxes and costs you need to build into your budget when you're buying an industrial property in Hungary? The most straightforward cost is the transfer tax, also known as stamp duty. It's a standard 4% of the property's value. Then you have VAT, and this can be the biggest variable. It's usually 27% on new buildings, but hey, it's often exempt on older ones, which is a big plus. And lastly, you've got to plan for annual building and land taxes that are set by the local municipality. And that brings us to our final and maybe our most strategic section, How you decide to structure your purchase as an asset deal or a share deal has massive consequences for both your tax bill and your legal risks. So here's the fundamental trade-off. With an asset deal, you're buying just the property. It's clean, simple, no baggage from the past. But you have to pay that 4% transfer tax. With a share deal, you're buying the entire company that owns the property. The big upside, you often get to skip that transfer tax. The huge risk, you inherit everything about that company. Its debts, its problems, its history. It's definitely a higher risk play, but it could lead to a bigger, more tax-efficient reward. So to bring it all home, here are your keys to success. First, really get a handle on the legal framework, especially that mandatory lawyer. Second, never ever skip the 3 layers of due diligence. Third, make sure the zoning and utilities actually work for your project. And finally, take a hard look at whether an asset deal or a share deal is the right strategy for your goals. The main takeaway here is pretty clear. Success in this market is not about luck, it's about preparation. If you master the legal rules, commit to doing your homework with due diligence, and pick the right way to structure the deal, you can secure an incredibly powerful asset for your company's future in Europe. So that leaves us with one final question for you to think about. Now that you see the trade-offs between playing it safe and being tax efficient, which road are you going to take? The straightforward asset deal or the more complex but potentially rewarding share deal? Which one really fits your investment goals in Hungary?